Here's the game. You're going to build a personal brand that is as diverse as you are as a human being. And you're just going to attract a lot of audience. You're going to get a lot of people to like you. Then you're going to leverage that personal brand to sell very niched product or service. And you're going to make a lot of money doing it. So you are a solopreneur. You don't have a lot of money on hand. You don't have any investors. You don't have, grandpa's not leaving you $1 million when he dies. And you don't probably have a team to manage 18 different projects. If you're like me, you don't even really want a team. You want to keep you don't want to have to engage with 18 different people a day on Slack, right? And you don't want to do paid ads. You want an organic marketing strategy. You want a strategy that fuels your creative self, fuels your identity, helps you light up. And you want to be able to post content that doesn't make you feel like you're constantly selling something, that you're always talking about your product and you're always selling something. And every little thing that you put into the universe has to be directly tied to the thing that sells, or else, God forbid, you should talk about something outside of the thing you sell. No. See, in 2020, all of the business gurus and their second cousins were telling you that you have to niche down. That if you want to be successful in any way, you need to niche down your social media. You need to be known for one thing. You need to do that thing really well. You need to be niched, and then you need to sell the niched thing. And that is the way to be successful. And then fast forward to summer 2022, and all of those same gurus that were talking about how you need to niche down woke up and realized, dude, it's really boring. It's really boring to have to be so niched. And they stopped posting on social media. A lot of them just stopped posting content altogether. And then when they came back, say fall 2022, we got this onslaught of the anti-niche movement. Now everybody is like, be the niche and anti-niche and you are the niche. And everyone's talking about this. But the problem is, this is what I see a lot of creators doing wrong right now in this anti-niche movement, is they forgot why niching is important in the first place. Niching is a fundamental part of business economics, okay? In business economics, it's called elasticity, which basically means a lack of, how much substitution a product has. So the reason you niche a product or service to sell is because you're trying to eliminate how many comparisons your consumer can put against your product. How many people in the category can they compare your product to? The more competitors you have, the lower the price can be and the harder it is to sell. But if there's really just one in the category and you've put yourself as, specific as possible or non-elastic as possible, then you can sell really high and you have no competitors and it's really easy to sell. So the reason niching works is because it's a fundamental part of business economics, right? So how do we do both? You need to do both. You need to build a personal brand that feels in alignment with your values, that makes you allowed to show up as a whole ass human being with a bunch of different interests, while also selling services or products that are very specific, that are niched, and that follow business 101 principles. Well, that's what this video is going to be about. I do recommend you hit save to your library because we are going deep into the tutorial of how to do this. There are several different layers that are going to span several different months of your business lifetime. So make sure that you save this so that you can respond to or return to it in the future. Okay, so step one to creating your personal brand or company brand is to design a world. I'm going to give you an exercise that you're going to do. It's probably going to take about an hour to do, but I want you to know that as your brand evolves, as you get more followers, as you get more customers, etc., your narrative and how you design this world is going to change. But here's the key principle that you need to understand. Every single brand has a world that followers or customers want to be part of. They want to reside in. So if you think of Apple, their world is very tech. It's very, it's a little bit pricier, but not far extreme luxury. It's more on the premium end. If you think about Disney, they have created a fantasy land. And so all of their content is very PG and under, it's very fantastical, it's very happy and gleeful, etc. So you have to think about how you want to design your world. And some of this is going to be a conscious effort, and then other parts of it is just going to happen naturally because you're showing up as your authentic self, and not everything is going to be like literally a decision per se, right? So when we're designing our who, it's very important that you understand you are not selecting your ideal customer right now. When you are designing a personal brand or company brand or brand for, social media, you are not designing an ideal customer. You are designing an ideal follower right now. And this means that you can intentionally have a wider scope. So you are designing your IF. They are intentionally going to be wide. You want to be thinking about their interests. So for example, if we're just going to take my personal brand as we work through this example, and I also want to say I'm going to be doing a lot of things that I say not to do, but the reason I'm doing it in this video is because I'm creating a tutorial for you and it makes sense within this context of this video, even if I don't do it in my other content, right? So if we're just thinking about my who, I call in a lot of Gen Zs and mostly a lot of millennials. I call in more cerebral types. I call in people with diverse ethnicities, races, genders. We are very passionate about having a diverse audience. So I'm going to call in a pretty collective demographic. But then we get beyond the demographics and we go into characteristics, right? And characteristics, I'm going to call in people who want to be entrepreneurs, that are creators, that want to make a lot of money. It's really that simple. I am for creator entrepreneurs who want to make a lot of money. And I am going to call in more analytical people. I also call in neurodivergent folks. I'm autistic and have ADHD, and I'm very open about that, so I end up attracting very neurodivergent people. I also talk a lot about fitness, and so I end up attracting a lot of people who are very into the fitness space. I love to lift. That's a commonality that I hold with my clients, or with my ideal followers. So my who is fit, or I'm sorry, actually it's creator entrepreneurs who want to make money. They're often neurodivergent, they're often into the fitness, and they're often millennials or Gen Zs with diversity. Okay, so we have our who for in our world. Now we're going to think about our what. And for this, you want to think about what is the personality or delivery of your content. So a lot of people are really into the humorous part. For one thing, I want to back up for a second. All of personal branding, or all branding of any kind, of anything, selling anything, is describing a dream in some way, right? You are creating a dreamland in some capacity, right? And so one of the ways to create a dreamland is by making it very happy and funny and hilarious, because that's a utopia that everybody desires, especially in our realistic world where that doesn't exist. So you could think about having a very comedic brand. We think of like Mr. Beast. I also, Shiesty, I think it's called Shiesty on TikTok, is known for that. There's also like the brothers who do real estate. They're known for their humor. So you can think about a very comedic brand. I personally end up having a very cerebral personality. I have a very dry sense of humor. I attract a lot of people who don't really care that I don't smile. I attract a lot of people that don't really care that I speak monotone. I attract a lot of people that don't really care that I'm neurodivergent. If those are all things that you care about, my content's not for you, and you probably wouldn't be watching this far into the video anyway, right? So next we have when. And when is your time cycle? So it's your predictability. In this world that you're designing for your audience, you want them to have some structure. You want them to have predictability. So they want to know that on Mondays and Fridays, you're going to be dropping a new podcast or a new YouTube video. They want to know that you're going to be dropping TikToks 3 times a day at this time, this time, and this time. They want to have some predictability for the content. But it's actually more than that. Like, your timeline is actually more than just when you post content. It's your cycle of your day and your week. So one of the ways to build your brand is to make sure that there's consistency in like what types you're posting. So for example, if you go to the gym every morning, you can do a 5 a.m. Check-in on your Instagram stories or in your TikToks of you going to the gym every Friday morning or every morning at 5 a.m. If you create breakfast with your kids every morning, then the best way is to create content, document it, and every morning you're posting, you creating, your breakfast in the morning with your kids, and you're sharing that. So it's not just the timeline of like, when are you creating content and posting it? It's also like literally people want to know what you're doing in your day and they want it to feel cyclical because that helps their brain simplify. So the more you can share what you're doing in your day and give that consistency and check in on those times, the better. Okay, so next we have our where. And where do you want your world to reside? Now, you can think of this as social media. You can think of this like we're on TikTok or we're on YouTube or we're on Instagram or we're on LinkedIn, whatever. You can think of it as a social media where. I guess that's a little part of it. But mostly the where is, where are you and where are they? Like, for example, I love luxury travel. So we spend a lot of time in first class. We spend a lot of time talking about luggage. One of my special interests is luggage. We are spending a lot of time in, the Delta rooms at airports, right? I spend a lot of time at the gym. So where we were at the gym. I'm a solopreneur and I work from home. So where we were at my desk. Every YouTube video I post, I'm at my desk. So the where is, where are we hanging out, right? Where is our club? We are hanging out at the gym. We're hanging out in luxury travel. We're hanging out in our home office, right? Where are we? This gives some facets to your world. There are locations and different locations for your audience to travel to with you in your little world. So next is your why. And let me tell you guys, if you have none of these others, but you have your why, you could still be pretty successful. If you have all of these, but you don't have a why, you will fail. Period. And the why is your public why. So, okay, there's an internal why. We could talk about mindset and manifestation and blah, 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 all that in another video. I'm talking about your public why. Your why is your morals and beliefs. It is the thing that polarizes your opinions from other people. Your why is what really gets your audience close to you. It is the moneymaker, if we're being fully transparent. Let's just call it what it is. A lot of people make money because their morals and beliefs align with their audience, right? And that is just the fundamental truth, that if a buyer has a choice between person A and person B, and person A has the same religion as them and person B doesn't, they're going with person A. It just is what it is, okay? So your why can be things like what religion you are. It could be things like your political stances. It could be that, you're a mother and so you have opinions on motherhood, right? Like motherhood. It goes beyond just your why and your opinions on your product and why your product exists. It goes beyond just the company why and into like those deeper connected things. One of the things that I talk a lot about that I'm really passionate about, as I said, is that I'm neurodivergent. But I spend a lot of time talking about autism and making company culture and processes accessible to autistic and otherwise neurodivergent folks. That is a huge part of why people buy from me, because they understand that that is a value or a belief that is in alignment with theirs as well. I also spend a lot of time talking about the Black Lives Matter movement. That is another reason why someone might buy from me versus someone else, right? So like, I know that a lot of people are scared to bring on their politicals and their religion and their everything onto social media. And I get why. And to be honest, ironically, the choice not to post your political stances is also part of your why. Like, that might be why someone buys from you, because they like that you are an escape from political world and that you're not so intense about that. That can be part of the why, right? But the most important thing is that there needs to be a distinct opinion, that if they have a choice between two products sold by two different people that on all of these other facets have the same world, they're going to buy from the one that is closer to likeness in their values and in their belief systems. Okay, so you're going to create this world in a document really fast, and then you're going to move into step 2, which is that how do you share all of this? How do you share your personal world literally on social media? And to be honest, like, this is where people fail. This is where it all falls apart, because they created their little world, they made their little, prompt, they have their pretty little Word doc that they filled out, and then they decide to post it all in chaos. And they post it all, and it's overwhelming. Like, they're talking about their kids on Tuesday, and they're crying in the car about their husband on Friday, but they're selling their grooming on Monday, and then they're being like, oh, also follow for more tips and tricks on TikTok hacks. Like, they're doing all of the things, and there's no clear focus. There's no clear consistency. This is where it all fails, because you need to diversify your brand without confusing your audience. Okay, so here's the formula for how you're going to do that. You have tell and show, and I'm going to give you a formula that you're going to replicate, and you're going to take it to the bank and make a lot of money, okay? There are some things that you're going to explicitly say in your content, and then there are other things you're going to not explicitly say, but you're going to show. Again, this goes back to us. We're creating a world, we're creating a narrative, we're creating a story. You are not the hero of your story. Your audience is the hero of the story. You are simply creating a world where they get to thrive and be the hero, okay? So you are going to tell what industry you're in. You gotta tell your audience very quickly what industry. You gotta give them a direction. Like, this is entrepreneurship. You come to my channel, we're talking about creator entrepreneurship, period. Pull. If you are fitness, you gotta give them an industry. We're in fitness. If you're in healthy foods, you're going into healthy food industry. Like, you gotta give us this very clear direction on what industry we're in. Now, obviously that's very obtuse still, but you've narrowed out probably 98% of the other industries, and that helps your audience very clearly simplify, okay? Then you're going to have one clear thesis about that industry. One clear thesis. My thesis is that you can be a creator that explores your personal brand, explores the diverse parts of yourself, while still selling a niche product and making a lot of money. That's the thesis, okay? Now, the clear part of this is that it needs to be arguable. Like, you cannot say that your thesis is, I want you to unlock fear. I want you to, embrace your life and live a happier life. Like, there's no contention with that. There's no argument against that. Who out there is realistically being like, I want you to be afraid. I'm going to teach you how to be afraid. I don't want you to embrace your happiness. I want you to stay up depressed and sad. Like, no one's actually creating that content, realistically speaking. And even if they are creating it, no one's following it. So you have to pick a thesis that is an argument. And the best way to find out if you have a clear thesis for your industry is the inverse viable? So if you say, I want you to unlock fear, the inverse of that is, I want you to maintain your fear. Well, is that a logical, viable argument that people are realistically arguing? No. Okay, so therefore it's not a thesis. So you need to have one clear industry, one clear thesis, and these are things that you explicitly tell, and you tell very frequently. They're at the forefront of all of your content, right? It is out of this basic thesis comes all of your very explicit content that you create, yeah? Then you're going to have 10 to 30 opinions or more about your industry. You will not create a personal brand if you don't have opinions. If all you do is regurgitate fact, and without even interpreting what that fact means in the real world, you're not gonna have a personal brand. It's just that simple, right? So you're going to explicitly tell all of these things. You're going to tell these things in your YouTube. You're going to tell these things in your IG posts. You're going to tell them on Twitter. You're going to tell them in your TikTok. Like, these are all things that you're explicitly saying. When you get a guest spot as a speaker out on podcasts, you're going to go through your list, maybe not all of them, but you're going to go through a good list of opinions that you have about your industry that all stem out of your core thesis, right? And these are how you quickly assess who wants to be part of your world, right? These are the pulls of you want to be in this world because you agree with this opinion. You want to be in this world because you agree with the opinion. You want to be in this world because maybe you don't fully agree, but you find it interesting and you want to listen to more. Like, you're pulling in your people with this tell. Now, we have our show. Now, our show is really where we get to shape our personal brand. So over here is how we're building like authority. We're making it easier to sell something because we have opinions, we have authority, we're educating, etc., etc. But the show is really where we get our hooks. And this is really our opportunity to diversify. Our show is really our opportunity to be the whole ass human that you want to be as a personal brand and as a content creator, as a creator who likes to explore things. This is your opportunity for that. So here's how we're going to do that. You're going to have 2 clear pillars outside of your thesis or outside of your industry. So here's what that means practically, okay? My industry is business entrepreneurship. My 2 pillars are ADHD, autism, and ADHD, and the second pillar is fitness, right? So I have 2 clear pillars that are not part of my industry, which is business entrepreneurship creators, but is still like core parts of my content that I talk a lot about. And we're going to talk about how you use them in just a second, okay? But I'm just getting to the formula in a second. So you have your 2 pillars. Then you're going to have 3 to 5 worldviews. And that goes back to your why that we were talking about earlier, of like, how do you, your political stance, your social stance, 3 to 5 things that you really care about. Then you're going to have about 15 plus interests. And again, I know I haven't told you how you're showing. I know I'm getting to that in just a second, okay? But you're going to have 15 plus interests. And to be honest, like, there's no real number on this. Like, if you really think about it, you probably have more than 15 interests. But this is just a framework for you to get started so that when you get out your paper, you can list 2 pillars, 3 to 5 worldviews, and 15 plus interests and feel like you did something, okay? So, now, here's how you're going to deploy your show. So in your tell, you're creating content like this one where you're going on YouTube or you're going in long form and short form, and you are giving very explicit information, very explicit education, very explicit opinions, and you're creating content that is supportive and valuable to your audience, yes? But you want to still show up as a personal brand that people want to get close to, that people really want to be in proximity to. And so that is where you're going to start to throw your pillars. So here's how you're going to do that. For starters, you have your 2 outside pillars. And you do this by first tying them into the opinions as examples or as context. So if I was talking about, you gotta show up to create content to, even when you're scared, you just gotta do it over and over and over again. It's like muscle memory. Well, I'm gonna draw on my fitness and you're gonna say it's kind of like when you go to the gym. The first time you go to the gym, it sucks. But the more you go to the gym and you work out your muscles, you gain muscle memory and it becomes a lot easier. And the strain or the recovery is a lot easier afterwards. So I have taken the industry thesis or the industry opinion, but I have exemplified it with one of my pillars, okay? So you're bringing that pillar in as that. Or you can do it, if it's not an example, you can do it for context. So for me, if I'm making a point about anyone can have a personal brand, anyone who creates content can leverage that personal brand to sell things, I might use myself as an example and say, I have autism and ADHD, which means that it's very hard for me to make eye contact. I often talk really fast. I am, my communication skills are a little bit different than other people's, and yet I still make a lot of money, right? So you can use your context of like anyone can have a personal brand and anyone can be really successful, even me who has a weird brain, okay? Then we have our worldviews. Now our worldviews, it's very important that you bring these in as narratives, okay? you can, and I've done this too, I did this, you can just like go on Instagram stories or create a TikTok that just like lists all your world views and just like goes off. But that really isn't playing a very long game that like maybe is gonna last in people's minds for a day, maybe 2 days, and then they're gonna forget about it. So that's really not the way to do it. The real way to do it is to integrate it into a story. So I get asked a lot, Jenna, how did you become an entrepreneur? Give us a little bit of history or background. Well, the background is that I actually didn't want to be an entrepreneur. Both my parents owned businesses, and growing up, I saw that they always had taxes and paperwork, and I thought that's what entrepreneurship was, and I didn't want to do it. So for the longest time, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. Then May 2020 hit, George Floyd passed away, was killed. There obviously was the outcry for that, and I wanted to make a financial contribution. I wanted to make a donation, and I realized at that time I literally could only make $10. I could literally only give away $10 to the Black Lives Matter movement, and it crushed me. It devastated me. And I vowed right then that I was going to control my money. I was going to make a lot of money so that one day I can donate $1 million to a cause, and it will have absolutely no negative effect on me or team or people that I support. And so that is my KPI. That's one of my greatest goals that I'm working towards, is I want to be able to donate $1 million to the Black Lives Matter movement or whatever is comparable in the future, without ever batting an eye. So what did you hear about in that story? Well, you heard a couple things that I didn't want to be an entrepreneur, and now I am. You heard that the George Floyd murder took a real emotional toll on me, and you heard that I care a lot about the Black Lives Matter movement. I want to commit $1 million in the future. I want to write a check for $1 million. So you've heard a lot about my values just in that story. So you're weaving in your values into the story that people often want to hear from you. If there are stories that you want it to be an accent piece. You don't want it to be the core staple of the story. It's more just something that you like drip in, that this is how I feel about this. Then you have your interests. So this is like top tier show don't tell. And the irony is what's about to happen is I'm going to tell you things. The irony about what's about to happen in this video is I'm going to explicitly tell you things so that then I can demonstrate an example. But I just want you to know that that's only because I'm educating, and in this video, I wouldn't literally do this outside of this piece of content. And if you watch my other content, you'll see what I mean. So one of my interests is dog behavior. My first company was actually related to dog training. And so I know a lot about dogs. I have a dog. He's very important to me. I'm not going to just go on my Instagram stories and be like, hey guys, did you guys know I had a dog? No. I'm not going to just like go on my Instagram stories and be like, did you guys know that I know a lot about dogs? No. But what I will do, and what I do on TikTok, I made a piece of content, is, I've told a story about how you don't want to be a lion or a sheep, you want to be a border collie, because border collies are highly intelligent. They actually never harm the sheep, but they herd them and they corral them to go where they want them to be. So you don't want to be a lion or sheep, you want to be a border collie. That's how I dropped in how I understand about border collies. One of my special interests is luxury travel. As I mentioned, I know a lot about luggage. I really want to own a luxury luggage brand in the future. And instead of me telling you I love to travel and spend a lot of my credit card points on travel, I'm just going to record myself in the lounges. And I'm going to use that as a backdrop for a piece of content. And I'm going to put one of my opinions or one of my, industry tells with the background of one of my interests, right? So either a photo or a video, or I'm talking in a lounge or whatever. So this is something that is being shown while I'm telling something else, right? So it's important that you know what these interests are that you have listed, because what ends up happening in our brains is our brains like to contextualize, and they like to say, when you're creating content, you're doing it at your desk. When you're creating content, you need to have your beautiful Canon photo or camera in front of you with the stand. Your brain is going to contextualize that, and it's not going to perceive that there are other opportunities for you to create content unless you remember actually you have all these interests that can act as backgrounds or supplement your tells. Right? And so when you have them listed out like this, then you are very intentional about weaving these shows into your tell. So now it's time to prepare your audience to buy from you. And this is a really important step, because if you've been building a personal brand, then there are people in your audience who want to buy from you. And there are a couple of reasons why they want to buy from you. Because they want to be closer to you. They're in your world. They're committed members of your world. They feel like the hero of the story, and they want to be a contributing member of that world's society, right? They want to contribute. They want to give back to the world that has been so kind in letting them hang out for a little while. And so this is just like this is a subconscious thing that's happening. So what they're going to do, what your ideal follower will do, is they're going to casually take interest in how they can buy from you. So they're going to like look to see if you have a Patreon, or they're going to go to your link in bio and just see what things you sell. They might listen a little bit longer on your podcast to see what you're promoting, etc., etc. They're going to take a very casual interest. It's important that you know that it's casual at this early stage, and that's okay, right? They're dating you. They want to know what would a commitment with you look like? Like, if I commit with you, are we like in this relationship and we're going to be in it for 2 years? Or if I commit to you, can I like bow out if I find out that I don't like you that much, right? They want to they're dating. They want to know what a commitment would look like hypothetically. Yeah. And so this is really your opportunity to find your ideal customer within your ideal follower. It is imperative that you understand that out of your ideal follower, you will create a sub community of your ideal customer. And that does mean that some of your ideal followers are not customers, and that's okay. But you're listening to what some of your ideal followers are asking for, and you are building your ICA, or your ideal customer avatar. And you're listening to very specifically what they think you excel at, what they think, if you already know what problem you solve, more power to you. But if you don't really know what to sell, listen to your ideal customer. They will tell you. And you want to think about, what sort of relationship do you want with your customers? Do you want a really low barrier to entry such that they can buy from you for $3 from $5? Do you want a high barrier to entry such that it takes them have to be more invested in time, more invested in money, more invested in everything to be close to you? So you're taking that into account. But most importantly, you're solving a very real problem. It is imperative that you know that you are listening to what your ideal customer's problem is within the industry. Obviously, we go back to our industry and I go back to our opinions, and you solve a very real problem. Now, a lot of times you will hear people be like, you need to find the demographics. And they'll be like, you need to have Karen, who's a mother of 3 and stay-at-home mom, and she always has her hair in her face when she's cleaning, so she needs a scrunchie that she can, no. All of those are demographics. Those really don't tell us anything important about Karen. What you actually care about beyond just the demographics are ideal characteristics. And you want to get to the mindset or the thought process, the real experience of what they desire. Now, as a pro tip, all things you sell are related to wealth, health, or relationships. Anything you want to sell, it will draw a line to one of these 3. More power to you if you can draw to 2 or 3 of these. If you can create a product that, enhances all 3 of these, money maker right there, okay? So all products that you sell are going to fall into this category. Now, what I often see is I'm selling something that's going to work on relationships. It's going to improve my relationship with grandma. I want my relationship with grandma to be better. Okay, then that's what your ideal customer says to you. You're interviewing them or you're talking to them on TikTok and they're like, man, what I really want is my grandma's relationship to be better. If you try to use that in marketing, it's not going to work because it's not a story. My relationship with grandma is not a story. You know what a story is? Is you want to be able to sew grandma a quilt so that when she dies, she can go to her grave with that quilt. That's a story. It has a beginning, a middle, and end. You built a quilt, you gave it to grandma, that's the middle, and then she died and she goes to the grave with the quilt, that's the end. Health. You don't just want to improve your diabetes. You want to be able to go to your kid's soccer game without worrying that your blood sugar is going to spike and you're going to have to leave early, right? So that's a story that you want to avoid. Your wealth. You don't want financial freedom. That's what their customer will tell you. They're like, I want financial freedom. But if you try to use financial freedom in your marketing, you will fail, like, period, okay? You don't want financial freedom. What you want is to be able to go to a restaurant and pay for a $300 steak. Let me tell you, the first time I had a $1,000 meal, I thought I'd made it. I was in Vegas with my husband, and we were on our pre-wedding moon, and we had a $1,000 meal, and I thought, like, this is it. This is top tier stuff. And that was the story that came to my mind, is like, this is what I wanted, right? I didn't want financial freedom. I wanted to be able to go to Vegas and sit at a very fancy restaurant that I otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford and spend $1,000 on food. That's a story, right? So you're thinking about what is the story that your ideal customer wants, and that is what you are relaying to them. Again, they're the hero of their story, and they have a beginning, a middle, and an end. You're just the facilitator to make sure that they get to that destination. And that's why they're in your world, because you're facilitating it, yes? Now that you understand what product you're going to sell, now it's time to actually sell it. Now, this is the tricky part. Again, this is where everything actually everything actually falls apart, because they understand the theory. People understand, like, oh, I'm supposed to be using this language and marketing it, but I don't want to have to sell constantly on my social media. I don't want to feel like I'm constantly, pushing buy now language and pushing salesy tactics. I also want it to feel organic. I want it to move through my personal brand. So now you're actually going to get people to buy from you. And it's very important that you understand you're going through the same cycle, such that you still have an argument, you're still in the industry, you still have opinions about the industry, and out of those opinions, you have found problems, and now your product or service is the solution to at least one or more of those problems, yes? To get people to buy from you, you're going to use this 3-pillar framework that I created for branding a product. So up until this point in this video, we've been talking about branding your company, branding your personality, branding your existence on social media. Now we are talking about branding your product or service that you sell. And for this, you're going to use the movement, thesis, reinforcer framework. And I created this TM, okay? So let's break this down. So first and foremost, you have your movement. Now your movement, we'll do it this way. Your movement, it needs to be an action, it needs to be active. Movement, to move is a verb, okay? Your movement is supposed to get your customer to take action. They can either take an action that is required in order to get the result they seek, or it can be an action that once they use your product, they get the result, then they can take that action. So movement needs to first and foremost be an action. Secondly, it needs to be 5 words or less. 5 words or less, okay? And it needs to ideally be hashtagable. If you can make it a hashtag, more power to you, okay? And your movement is supposed to be obtuse. Your thesis is going to be more stark, but your movement needs to be very approachable. A lot of people can buy into the idea, yes? So some examples that we have are Just Do It from Nike. Just do it is an action, okay? Take the action. Another example that we have is Kia Souls, which was applause. I have a Kia Soul. I love my Kia Soul. Ever since like 2010 when the car came out, I was like, oh my God, I love the Kia Soul. And I loved those hamster commercials where the message was, you get a standing ovation for pretty cheap, right? The message was, you've arrived, you have transformed yourself into the celebrity, the known person, and people are applauding you when you drive this car. Okay, applause is the movement. So you're picking something that either A, is going to happen before they invest in the transformation. They need to take this movement in order to buy your product or service. Or better yet, you pick a movement that they gain by having used and get the results of your product or service. Okay. Now you want to have a thesis. Now, your thesis is different than your personal brand theses, okay? This is a thesis purely for the product or service that you're selling. It is the argument against the others in the category. So this goes back into a principle called elasticity, which basically means that you are eliminating competitors, or eliminating the ability for your consumer to compare your product with others in the category, that it is a standalone product that they really can't compare with others. And so you do this by taking a stance against the industry. Something that I see a lot from other business gurus is they're always like, do competitor research and see what they're doing and do it better. No. You are not in competition with the competitors. You are in competition with the category on the whole. Your goal is to eviscerate the category that exists and make either a new one or destroy it and make it a different version of itself, right? You're in competition with the category. So your thesis for your product or service is, how can I argue against the category stance, okay? Again, it needs to be arguable. It's going to be contentious, like it needs to spark debate, and it's going to be a full sentence. And you're going to deploy this full sentence on the very top banner of your sales page. It's going to be one of the first things they see. You're going to deploy it a lot in your content, like when you actually decide to announce that you've made the product. One of the first things that you're going to do when you say it's for sale is you're going to tell people the thesis. It's like the first message they're going to read. Then you have reinforcers. Okay, so reinforcers, first of all, reinforcers reinforce the idea after they have bought. So the reinforcers do not happen before they buy. It happens the moment they give you that credit card. So the minute the transaction happens, reinforcers, or that journey of reinforcement, starts, okay? Now, reinforcers, the key one is you want to affirm that you get the result, okay? So, like, do not be promising, do not make a product that, like, doesn't give a result, okay? I mean, I know that there are people that do that. Don't do that, okay? So the first one is to affirm your result. Next, you have the consistent reinforcer, and the consistent reinforcer tells them that every new problem that you just solved has created a new problem, right? You've solved a problem to create a new one. Your consistent reinforcer is really about locking in LTV, okay? And in fact, to be honest, your reinforcer on the whole is meant to be locking in LTV, and LTV is lifetime value of the customer. So lifetime value meaning they will buy from you again. How much money can you get out of one customer so that you're not constantly having to find new customers? You just get the same customers to buy from you over and over and over again. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. You can do this in a successor model, such that they've bought this problem, which caused another one, so they have to buy this thing, which solves that problem, which causes another one, so they have to buy this. So they have to get this, then that, then that, then that. You can do the subscription phase, basically, where they have to buy the same thing over and over and over again. You can also do flavors. So it's the exact same thing, but it comes in different flavors, and they get to pick and choose which flavors they want. So that is effectively the best ways to get LTV. And so the consistent reinforcer tells them, hey, you have a new problem because we just solved this one and we're aware that you have a new one coming. So we just want you to know that we are ready for you to, when you need to solve that next one, we have the solution for you prepared. That really locks in LTV. And then the other reinforcer that I think is, it's the subliminal one that I find really gets people connected to the brand itself. So whereas these are going to get people connected to the product because it gets the result and it gets the, it tells them that we're aware of the next problem that they have, the surprise reinforcers get the customer connected to the brand. It gets customers saying, oh my God, not only is this product amazing, not only did I like the personal brand on social media, but now that I'm a paying customer, I am like the evangelical like preacher for this brand. I think they're so great. And here's how you're gonna do surprise reinforcers. Okay, these guys are gonna be, hey Susie, you have bought 3 times from us. We recognize that. We just wanna give you the 4th one free. You don't need to do anything else. We just want you to know that's on the way next month. Surprise. Surprise reinforcer can be, as soon as you bought, someone sent you a welcome gift. You know, you invested in a $10,000 service and the CEO wrote you a handwritten note and sent you a welcome gift to welcome you into the service, right? It can be, we noticed that this month has been a little bit harder for you financially, so we just want you to know we're giving you a 5% discount this month. Don't worry about it, it's already taken care of on your bill. It's that above beyond taking notice of the customer and giving them something for no ask other than we have seen you as a customer and we want to retain that customer, so we're betting on you now. This used to look like reward systems where like, you know, you have little stamps and you go to the restaurant every single time and they give you a little stamp on the 10th stamp, you know, and all that disappeared, to be honest, because it required having paper and it required having people manage things, and it just required a little bit more effort on the consumer end. Reinforcers are most productive when the consumers don't have to do anything and they get them anyway. Reinforcers are the best, like really lock you into the brand when the consumer or the customer doesn't have to do a single thing and they get the reinforcer anyway. Now, if you've made it this far into this piece of content, then you probably are wondering, Jenna, you haven't told me any like tactical thing of like, should I post on Instagram? And like, should it be an IG reel or an IG graphic? Should I post a story? Like, you haven't told me any technical things. Yeah. Because none of that matters, right? Like if you understand the principles, then you can deploy the principles in 800 different ways. And whether you do it in an email, you do it on TikTok, you do it on IG stories, you do it in a YouTube video, you do it in a description box, you do it in a comment section. It doesn't matter because you're deploying the technique. Right? And I see a lot of newbies get hung up on the technical piece of it because all of this is too heavy and too weighted, but that's not going to actually make you money. If you really want to have a sustainable result, then you need to understand all the principles I just talked about building a brand and deploying the strategy behind using that brand and selling products, and then all of the little nuances of like what techniques you do. You can find that in my other content, and I'll link those in the description box as well so that you can go find those resources. But I think the money maker is this stuff. The money maker is the strategy, and it'll behoove you to focus a lot of your efforts on mastering the strategy and finessing where you deploy the strategy in the future. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit like, consider subscribing to support the channel. If you're interested in understanding some techniques to deploy the strategies we just talked about, you can check out this video next, and I'll see you guys in the next video.